What if life were utterly meaningless and everything we did held no significance at all? How would you live your life then? These are the questions that French philosopher and author Albert Camus grappled with during the mid-20th century, a time when the world was trying to make sense of the chaos and destruction brought upon by World War II. This was the era of existentialism, a philosophical movement that emphasized individual existence, freedom, and choice. Camus, a titan of this movement, sought to explore these themes through his work, most notably in his novel, The Stranger. Set in French Algeria, the book invites us into the world of its protagonist, Meursault, a man whose peculiarities make him a fascinating study of existential thought. Meursault, you see, is a man who is profoundly indifferent. He lives his life detached from the societal norms that dictate how one should feel or behave. When his mother dies, he does not grieve. When offered a promotion, he does not rejoice. His life is a series of events strung together without any emotional or moral judgment. He is, in essence, a stranger to the conventional human experience. But it is not just life that Meursault meets with indifference, it's also death. He kills a man, not out of hatred or vengeance, but simply because the sun was in his eyes. It's an act that ultimately leads to his downfall, but even as he faces the guillotine, Meursault remains unflinchingly indifferent. He accepts death just as he accepted life, without any fear or regret. This lack of conventional moral compass, this indifference towards life and death, raises perplexing questions. Is Meursault a monster, devoid of humanity? Or is he simply a man living in accordance with his personal truth, refusing to be swayed by societal expectations? In a world devoid of meaning, Meursault stands as a stranger, an outsider. But perhaps, in his indifference, he is the most honest of us all. For isn't life, in its most basic form, a series of events we navigate without truly understanding why? And in that sense, aren't we all strangers trying to make sense of an enigma we call life? In The Stranger, life doesn't make sense. It doesn't have any important goal or reason. This cold idea is the backbone of all conversations, relationships, and happenings in the book. The main idea in The Stranger is that life has no meaning and trying to find one is pointless. The main character, Meursault, shows this idea through his casual way of living, his indifference towards society's rules, and his lack of deep feelings. For example, when Meursault's mom dies, he doesn't mourn. Instead, he smokes and drinks coffee near her casket. His reaction might seem cold-hearted, but it really shows how pointless life and death are. Then there's Meursault's relationship with Marie. Even though she loves him, Meursault doesn't have strong feelings for her. He likes being with her, hearing her laugh and being close to her, but he doesn't love her. Not because he can't love, but because love doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things. Lastly, there's the killing of the Arab man. This act, without any logical reason, symbolizes life's pointlessness. Meursault kills not because of anger or revenge, but because of the blinding sun and confusion. The murder isn't because of a series of causes and effects, but a random, meaningless act in a universe that's also meaningless. All these interactions, relationships, and events emphasize life's pointlessness as shown in The Stranger. They lack any deeper meaning, just like life itself, through Meursault's perspective. Through Meursault's eyes, we see how pointless existence is. The climax of The Stranger is as unconventional as its protagonist. As we delve into the scene of Meursault's trial and verdict, we are met with a spectacle that is more of a character examination than a genuine pursuit of justice. In the courtroom, Meursault becomes the subject of scrutiny, not because he committed murder, but because he does not conform to societal norms. His actions on the day of his mother's funeral are put under the microscope, and his indifference to her death is held against him. The trial veers off into an absurd direction, focusing on Meursault's character, his lack of conventional emotions, rather than the crime itself. The prosecutor paints him as a monster, a man devoid of human feelings, a dangerous threat to society. The jury, influenced by this portrayal, hands down a guilty verdict, sentencing Meursault to death. Yet, the irony lies in the fact that he is not being judged for his crime, but for his unconventional response to life and death, his refusal to play the role society expects him to. Now, you might expect a man facing the gallows to show some fear, some remorse. But Meursault, true to his character, shows none. Instead, he accepts his fate with an almost eerie calmness, remaining indifferent to the end. He does not beg for mercy or express regret. He merely states that, regardless of the verdict, everyone is privileged to live and equally destined to die. His lack of fear towards death is as puzzling as it is fascinating. This indifference, this refusal to adhere to societal expectations, is what ultimately seals Meursault's fate. His lack of remorse, his refusal to fear death, are perceived as alien, as strange. He is a stranger not just to the people around him, but to the societal norms and expectations they uphold. And so, Meursault, the stranger, walks towards his execution with a calm acceptance, a quiet defiance. He does not seek to justify his actions or to plead for his life. He merely exists, as he always has, in his own world, indifferent to the judgments of others. In the face of death, Meursault remains a stranger to fear and regret. So, what does the stranger teach us about life and existence? At its heart, the stranger presents a profound exploration of existentialism and absurdism. Existentialism, as portrayed in the book, is the belief that life is inherently meaningless, and it is up to each individual to give it a purpose. Our protagonist, Meursault, embodies this philosophy by living life according to his own terms, indifferent to societal norms. On the other hand, absurdism, another key theme, emphasizes the irrationality of life. The world in The Stranger is uncaring and chaotic, mirroring the unpredictability of our own lives. Meursault's seemingly random acts, his impassive reaction to his mother's death, and his ultimate fate all underline this sense of life's absurdity. In conclusion, The Stranger forces us to question our own beliefs about life, morality, and the meaning of existence. It reminds us that sometimes we might be strangers in our own lives. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend adding it to your reading list. Don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts on this profound work. Until next time, happy reading.